The SAVE Act is unconstitutional, and I can prove it to you with numbers in the next 90 seconds. And I have a deep dive on this one in my Substack, but to start, you have to understand that the Supreme Court uses a test called strict scrutiny in cases like this one, which answers the question, is the government's interest in solving a problem big enough that it justifies using a law that limits a constitutional right? In the case of the SAVE Act, the question would be, does the government have a big enough need to prevent non-citizens from fraudulently voting that it justifies the potential disenfranchisement of people who have an actual right to vote? And to figure that out, you can compare the size of the problem the government is solving, which is non-citizens voting, and the size of the problem the solution proposed by the government actually creates. So the first part of our question is how many non-citizens vote? And to find out, we can look at probably the most extreme study conducted by the Heritage Foundation, which incidentally is the same group that created Project 2025 and supports the SAVE Act, collecting and documented instances of voter fraud since 1982. So over that time span, the Heritage Foundation was able to document a whopping 1,513 cases of voter fraud. But that's over a time span of 43 years, and during that time, Americans cast about 5 billion votes. Oh, and also, those 1,513 fraudulent votes were mostly cast by citizens, because the total number of votes cast by non-citizens is 68, most of them cast in error and not through fraud. 68 over 43 years. That's 1.6 cases per year. That is an incidence of non-citizen votes of 0.000000136%, according to the Heritage Foundation. So now that we have the size of the problem the government is solving, let's compare it to the size of the people whose constitutional rights will be compressed. There are about 22 million people who would have a hard time complying with the SAVE Act in order to vote. But let's even drill that down to the single most vulnerable class, and that is economically disadvantaged citizens who do not currently possess proof of citizenship, and that group is made of 3.8 million people. Yes, almost 4 million voters could be disenfranchised and prohibited from voting to ensure that we prevent 1.6 ineligible votes from happening. Dear American voter, this is not about preventing fraud. This is about preventing the other side from legitimately winning.